Welcome to Tail Learn Code. Here there will be tales about software development, learning from each other, code to build solutions. And now your host, Chad Green.
So today I have the distinct pleasure to have Scott Seighman. I screwed up on the name. That's the easy part. And, it's the last name I'm never 100% sure how to pronounce. But and kind of like yesterday, I think we're kind of in a theme this week of non-Microsoft type development, right? So yesterday I had Java trainer. Today, you've been in the Java community for a very long time. To include you worked for Sun for a long time. Tomorrow I'm interviewing someone who works for Auth0 that's also on the on the LAMP stack. So it's a different kind of week this week, which is kind of fun, right? And as we were talking before, I'm an unabashed Microsoft fanboy, but with that being said, Microsoft is very much in the Linux world, and we were talking about right before, so Scott works for Red Hat, and there's a really good relationship with Microsoft and Red Hat.
Yeah, no question about it.
You would have been surprised to say that 10 years ago, right?
Oh, no question about it. I think both sides would be surprised. It was just funny. Just I think it was just a year or two ago at our conference that we have every year, our Red Hat conference called Summit, and there's Jim Whitehurst and up on stage, with Microsoft leadership. It was crazy. It was really cool to see.
So it's funny. I'm just now noticing, and I like the cool part about everyone being online now is you get to see what they have in their house. And I love the fact you actually have a red hat in your background.
I do, yes.
We actually have two, yes, but is that purposely placed, or is it just somehow made its way there?
It's this is my my home office, but it is strategically placed so that it can be seen in the background. Yes.
No, I just noticed it, and I had a chuckle about that. So with that, I've talked about you're with Red Hat, but give a quick introduction to yourself.
Sure. So I'm a solutions architect with Red Hat, which essentially means that I work with organizations. I'm based in Cleveland, by the way, up north. So I work with customers in, I guess what's described as the Ohio Valley, right? Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky. And we just try to help customers solve problems, right? Fill some gaps with, using open source technology, which is obviously where our focus is.
Right.
So I've been with Red Hat 5 years and really enjoy it. This is an organization with an amazing culture, and I think there was some concern when IBM acquired us last year that culture might be affected, but it's still as lively and as open as you might imagine it would be, had IBM not acquired us. So
I do think that's something that has also changed in technology over the last couple of years. Is companies are realizing when they take over established companies, you kind of need to leave them alone in some sense, right?
Yeah.
And I've definitely been on the flip side of that, right? So I was EDS, and EDS got acquired by HP, and they didn't know how to treat us, right? Because it was HP going from being printers and ink to your people are are what you're selling, right? And
and this is, I guess, the second time I've been through an acquisition. When I was working with Sun, of course, Oracle acquired Sun, right? And that didn't turn out quite as well, as you well know, but which is a real shame, because I think culture-wise, Sun was probably as close to the culture that I'm in now at Red Hat than any other company that I've had an opportunity to work for. So, but you're absolutely right. It's all about the people, and the culture, and I think that's one of the reasons why IBM acquired Red Hat was for those specific reasons, right? Obviously, our open source success obviously played into it.
Sure.
But it certainly was the culture and the people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you talked about Sun. I mean, Sun was a really interesting company. Way back when I worked for a company up in Boston, right there in the Burlington area, and I was going over to the Sun campus all the time, to do 10 different shows and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Although, sure enough, and you'll find this funny, I think the best time I had over there was a guy who came in to do, and this was when .NET still was in beta, so it was before .NET even came out, and he was comparing .NET to J2EE, and he was talking about which was better for different situations and everything. And every time he said, "Well, .NET's actually better in this," and everyone was like, "Oh, no way, no!" And there was probably 300 people in that room. He was getting hammered by the audience.
You have to know your audience, right? You know your audience. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but with that being said, that he was asked to, that was what he was asked to present about. But but yeah, no, I always chuckle when I think about that session, because it was because Boston. I don't know if Boston still is a humongous Java town, but it definitely used to be. Yeah,
I think. It's funny you say that, because there are certainly geographic reasons, for, locations for whatever reason, that seem to gravitate towards, .NET or Java. Yeah, it's kind of weird that way. I'm in Cleveland. I would say, there's certainly, I would say .NET is still probably a majority. There's a lot of Java, of course, but I would say .NET is still the majority here in Cleveland, Northeast Ohio. And that's primarily because some of the biggest organizations, companies in Northeast Ohio, that's where their focus is. So It's natural. Yeah.
I mean, that's always been the fun part about Code PaLOUsa. For years, everyone's like, well, why don't you have more non-Microsoft? Well, you realize that like 80% of the people that work in this area are doing Microsoft development, right? So
yeah.
And that's down from like 90% when we started, right?
Yeah.
so like, that's why it's been, we're not a Microsoft conference, but we're.
Yeah, well, and again, there's a big conference I'm certain you're familiar with here in kind of the Northeast Ohio area called Code Mash.
Oh yeah.
That happens every year in January, and it started out much the same way. I think it was more focused on the Microsoft environment and .NET, but over the years, things, Java was kind of introduced, and now it's a pretty good, it's a polyglot conference, I guess, for lack of a better term, right?
And sure, I mean, Code Mash is definitely a good mix. I've spoken to Code Mash several times, and I know Code Mash, they try to make a less emphasis on Microsoft, but that's fine. But again, that's because of their audience, right? I mean, they're catering to the audience, which is why usually when I speak there, I speak about Microsoft stuff that isn't what you think is Microsoft stuff, right? I mean, like this year I spoke about graph databases, right? And, that you would never know it's Microsoft other than the fact that it was hosted on Cosmos, right?
Right.
So, cool. So, I just lost my train of thought. Where I was going to go with that. Oh, I know where I was going to go. So you talk about you're from Cleveland. So I mean, the one thing I've been asking a lot of folks is, how's the pandemic been treating folks in Cleveland?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now, the Cleveland area is experiencing, obviously an uptick in cases, and all of Ohio in general is under a mask mandate right now. So we're all supposed to be wearing masks in public, of course. It's personally, I work from home and have worked from home for 15 years, I'm going to say now. Mm-hmm. So for me, it hasn't been other than the fact that I'm not out visiting, obviously, and having in-person conversations with companies and organizations that we normally work with. So obviously, that's changed. But I think, the people in Northeast Ohio seem to be adapting fairly well. Just like everywhere, once the weather turned nice, people wanted to get out, and it's just natural that you want to get out and start you know, just talking with people and meeting with people, and obviously that's contributed to that uptick. But I think business-wise, it seems to be going fairly well. I haven't, there's a couple companies that we work with that are doing some alternating furloughs, that we've heard quite a bit about, where they'll be on furlough, once a quarter. And there's some, fairly large organizations that are using that as a, the way to save some costs. But it doesn't seem to affect the business. The business is still kind of moving forward, albeit maybe at a little slower pace, as you might imagine. But nonetheless, I think those projects that the companies here in Northeast Ohio have been working on prior to, the COVID and the shutdowns and all those types of things, they're still moving forward, just at, a little bit slower pace.
Right.
Retail's being affected, obviously. I think that's where we're seeing most of the slowdown with our customers, is those that are in the retail space, as you might imagine.
Of course, retail was already hit hard before all this. So this is, there's some places I'm surprised they're still in business. They were suffering so bad beforehand. I don't know how they're going to survive.
Yeah. Obviously it's having an impact on conferences, right? So,
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Well aware of that. So I'm going to turn the tables on you a little bit. How is that? You obviously had to move quickly and adjust to what happened and how it's affected in-person type events like this. So, how difficult was that to kind of about face or make that, that pivot?
I think the hardest part wasn't on a business or technical standpoint. It was a personal standpoint, right? We go to conferences because it's funny. Most people in tech are introverted. We all love to go to conferences, right? And we love being around people, at least for those couple of days, right?
Yeah.
So, we were, and I've told the story a couple of times, we were doing call for speakers as all this thing was breaking apart in the United States, right? And I remember when we opened up the call for speakers at the beginning of March, COVID was this thing in Asia, right? And very quickly it was this thing in Seattle also, right? And then but then as the call for speakers went on, and then as we started selecting speakers, we start off, well, we should be fine. Everything should be cleared up by then. Kentucky's so far away from the coastal towns. We probably won't get affected too much, because no one really knew about this thing. And then like the next week, it's like, well, okay, we're gonna have to do a hybrid model, because I knew I wasn't gonna get speakers. I knew speakers just weren't gonna be able to travel. And then then quickly it was have to do online. So it's been tough. I know some conferences have decided to, they were not going to go online no matter what, because they were so worried about losing the feeling of a conference.
Yeah.
And I've talked to, not every one of them, obviously, but I've talked to quite a few of them. And I get exactly where they're coming from. But we're trying to do as much as possible to make this as real as possible. And sure enough, I've been going to this mantra that it's not a virtual conference; it is a conference that is online. And I got this from a story I heard in NPR. So there was, and this was 2 or 3 months ago, and a story about online bar mitzvahs. Right, because still going to have that bar mitzvah, but obviously you can't meet in person. And they were interviewing a rabbi, and this rabbi says it's not a virtual event; it is real in every sense. We this young man or this young woman, has really sent it into the into the I don't think they call it church, but further in their religion, and it really stuck with me. So I've been emphasizing how this is a online event as opposed to a virtual event. Right. So we're doing the best we can. Now with that being said, attendance is down, sponsorships are down. Now we actually built a budget that we could actually survive with no sponsors. We have one. We have one so far, and actually, I can't say who yet, but we will have two. I had a very good conversation today. I just have to review. It's a big enough company that they're giving me their contract instead of me giving me mine.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'll go. I was about to say I can actually give another hint, but I won't because the contract's not signed. But
well, I'm happy to see that the conference is obviously going on. So that's great.
Well, and the big thing, and my main reason for continuing it was, I was just seeing one conference after another getting canceled. I'm like, well, I want to make sure some people have at least one conference to be able to go to.
Yeah.
And then I think, because like I say, attendance is down. I think that relates to just the fact I think people are tired, right? They're just around the computer so much. Because I know you. I don't know if you still run the Java user group up in Cleveland, but I know you did that for a long time. Yeah. I don't know about you, but like my numbers for my user groups are down. My wife was asking me today, and I was telling her, oh yeah, here's where their numbers are, and she's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You should have more. I'm like, well, you would think so, but at my free event, that I have every couple of weeks, where our numbers are down. Now I think more of that is because people are on the computer all day, and then it's like, oh, I really just can't do another hour and a half, So I'm also hoping. I'm very hopeful that a lot of people are just procrastinating, just haven't bought their ticket yet.
I was just going to say, if they're anything like me, they're probably, oh shit, I gotta get registered, and you'll probably have this, mad rush here in the last couple of weeks before the conference starts.
That is one of them. And sure enough, traditionally, Code PaLOusa has always been that way. It's still remember the very first Code PaLOusa, which this is our 10th year. So so 10 years ago, I with a month to go, I had more speakers than I had attendees. And I don't have as many speakers as I do now, right? But it was, and I remember, really freaking out. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? We ended up, our first year was 289 people. So obviously that number quickly changed, but so, and yes, I still remember the number of the first year's attendance. I don't remember numbers for anything, but I can remember my first year's attendance.
Well, I was going back over my my archives of sessions that I've done over the years, and the earliest one I could find was 2014 for Code PaLOusa. So I don't know if I had presented prior. I thought I might have participated in earlier years, but maybe that was the earliest one that.
That probably sounds about right, because if I remember correctly, I think I reached out to you because I was trying to get more non-Microsoft talks. Because I'm pretty sure I reached out to you, and I don't remember his name exactly. Raza.
Oh yes.
Because
that makes sense.
Because the two of you were working at Oracle at the time, and I reached out to you all because I was looking for Java content. Yeah. And so 2014 sounds about right.
Yeah. And ironically, Rez is at Microsoft now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of funny that,
Yeah. But it's great. I mean, the conference has obviously grown every year, and, I look forward to it, whether I'm, participating as a speaker or just as, someone that can take advantage of all the great sessions that you're going to have. Yeah. Yeah.
And then sure enough, because we tried to just pass and never worked out very well. All the sessions will be recorded, it's because it's kind of just built in, right? It's the advantage of going online, right? There was one year, I'm not sure if you were there that year, we tried to record. That didn't work well. No. We had cross feeds, and so it was kind of fun watching some of these videos, trying to salvage them, and you listen to someone, and all of a sudden you get someone else's, voice,
audio,
but it was close enough that you really couldn't tell that much of difference in the mouth, but they were saying something completely different than the slides were saying, so it was hilarious with some of them. But obviously, we never published those.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I don't know if you can see that on screen. I've got one of the nice glasses that was given out to speakers and partaking in a little
I'm still on my water, but that's that'll be well. Actually, I might be painting tonight, so that's why I haven't started drinking anything.
Yes, painting. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't need to be. I don't need any adult beverages in me until after I'm done with that.
Actually, I need adult beverages to paint. That's how much I enjoy painting. So it makes it easier.
No. Yeah, I'm more in that camp of that.
Yeah.
But I'm the one who has to do all the straight lines. I do all the borders, and then wife and daughter will do the rollers.
I do the same. Yeah.
So, and of course, the funny part about that is so this started off because we actually had our bathrooms remodeled, and of course they did everything but the walls, right? Which that was by contract, and so I'm all right. Well, we got to paint the bathrooms, and well, then my daughter decides she wants her bedroom repainted. And I'm just, we're in Home Depot and she's picking out paint color for her room. And I'm sitting there like, no, I agreed to do the 2 bathrooms. That's all I agreed to do. And at first I was like, no, we're not buying more paint. And then she was sulking. Of course, I'm sitting here like, you're going back, because she actually lives in Boston, right? Because that's where she's going to school. Yeah. And she's going back to Boston in like 4 weeks. I'm like, why?
What else is there to do right now, right? You might
that's kind of what it is. Of course, yesterday she learned how hard it actually is to do the painting. Oh, don't tell me we're going to start losing. Oh, there we go. The video stuttered for a second there.
Yeah, we're back now.
Yeah. Sure enough, I'm getting a poor connection. Well, we'll see how well that stays. And there, the poor. Okay, I must have had a blip on my internet connection there. That is the part I'm looking forward to at Code PaLOusa, right? I was talking to someone today, and we're going to have all these volunteers, and she was asking, because originally we were still going to have a command center at the Hyatt, but actually today I canceled that because I'm like, that's just not going to work. But so my sponsorship coordinator, she's like, well, how's that going to work? I'm like, well, everyone's just going to do it from home. I'm like, it's not like it's really hard, right? I mean, it's just, it's literally pushing a button to allow the speaker in the room, and not allow anyone else to just start speaking. But and then I was talking about afterwards. I'm like, well, we'll have to edit the videos. I'm not going to just be able to upload them. I have to edit them. Because I was like, I know, at least one speaker is going to have internet issues in the middle of it, so I'll do a little bit of editing to fix it up and everything. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That should be fun.
Yeah, I bet.
And looking forward is being sarcastic. So let's talk about your talk, because I think that'll spark a lot more conversation. Sure. And I gotta admit, I know almost nothing about what you're talking about. Because again, I mean, I don't live in the Java world, but so I mean, I was reading, I've been rereading the session today. So your talk is supersonic subatomic Java, right? Yeah. And it's about Quarkus. I mean, that's the root of it. I mean, so for the uninitiated, I mean, what is Quarkus?
So, and I think when you spoke with Jeremy and Devin, they probably talked a little bit about Quarkus, because I think it's at the foundation of what they're going to be talking about. By the way, that's a good session for all you people out there to certainly attend around event-driven architectures with Quarkus. But so Quarkus is well, for me, I'll take a step back just for a moment. Having worked for Sun for 12 years and being really close, I was in a unit of the Java software group that was responsible for embedding Java technologies in, at the time, application servers. So, BEA would have been one of our customers. We got them to adopt Java and those types of things. So I've been around Java since '98 when I joined Sun. So, for me, a technology like Quarkus, and I'll talk a little bit more about it here in a second, it kind of rejuvenates us, or those of us that are in the Java community, I think, at least, because of just the nature of what it addresses around productivity and density and startup times and all those things that a lot of developers and organizations are looking for with their applications today. So Quarkus is a framework. It's a Kubernetes native framework that's tailored to run on either the hotspot VM, a traditional Java VM environment, or the Graal VM, which is a technology that we can use to compile these Quarkus applications, these Java applications, into native code that obviously are a lot smaller and that contributes to really fast startup times. So this is a framework that's been crafted from best of breed Java libraries and standard that all Java developers are familiar with. So it allows them to leverage those skills that they developed over the years, the Java skills that they developed over the years. But at the same time, be able to deploy these Java applications, these Quarkus applications, in a Kubernetes platform, or run in an environment that's not really traditional, what you wouldn't think is traditional for Java applications, which is like a serverless environment. Mm-hmm. So it offers developers this kind of broader framework to address a lot wider range of distributed application architectures and use cases. So I'll stop there and just basically in one sentence, it's a Kubernetes native Java framework is really what Quarkus comes down to. Yeah.
Cool. And then, I'm curious. So with this session, how much Java knowledge are you going to need to go into it?
Yeah. We're going to be talking primarily around bootstrapping or getting you up and running with Quarkus. So you don't have to have a lot of familiarity with Java. If you do, a lot of this will be, I think a lot of it will be, I think the advantages will be really evident to you as a developer, as a Java developer. If for example, the .NET developers are looking to broaden their skill set, this would be a great session for them to understand the advantage of the Kubernetes framework and how there's no real requirement for you to understand or be aware of how Java works. It's more of a this is the kind of productivity. These are the productivity advantages you're going to see. These are maybe the cost savings or the business advantages that you might see. Maybe about why your organizations would care about using a Java stack like this in your Kubernetes environment. So, faster time to market, reliability, all those types of things we're going to cover in the demonstration. So I'll have some slides, of course, just to kind of set the stage, but I'm going to spend a lot of time showing demonstrations and showing you how to bootstrap applications really quickly and without having to have any knowledge of Java. Everything will kind of be bootstrapped for you. Yeah.
And just like I turned off my video to you just to see if that, because it started to skip a little bit there. So I'm
do you
gonna
want me to turn off mine for now? Do you want me to try that too?
No, I'm gonna just try it with that. That way, because sure enough, I am sending two different sets of videos out on the internet, so hopefully that will make a difference. Because it's not been as bad as some of the other ones I've seen, but it's 6 o'clock. People are coming. I have a feeling people are ending their day and getting on the internet around me. And that's the problem with cable modems, right? You're kind of under the bandwidth of everyone in your neighborhood.
Yep, of course.
But no, sure enough, the last question I asked on purpose because I always tell people, check out sessions that are not in your normal area, right? It's right. Especially the more senior you are, right? Or the more desire you have to be senior, right? I get a lot of people, what do I need to do to get like that architect role or that type of stuff? I'm like, well, learn stuff outside of your technology because you learn so much about your own technology by learning about other people's technologies.
Yeah, and this technology, which it was introduced about a year ago, I'm going to say, in the 1.0 version, was actually released earlier this year. But there's a lot of momentum behind it, and that's because obviously I think that momentum is being built by the fact that it's a technology that Java developers can use right out of the box without a really steep learning curve. So that's something that they can easily adopt, and it helps them, I think, address or it helps them with those use cases that I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, around serverless, right, where you need really fast startup times, and traditionally you haven't been able to do that with Java. I'm not suggesting Java is slow, right? Because that's the thing, right?
Hey, I didn't say it,
Yeah, right. Let's just say that, traditionally that's not, but over the years, there's been some adaptations of the JVM, for example, as that's matured here in recent years, and new features are added to it that help Java developers write applications and run in containers, for example. This is kind of building on that same momentum and be able to deliver those with even a faster startup time and a lot smaller footprint.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm still laughing about the slow comment. I'm still like, hey, I didn't mention it. I didn't even bring it up. But yeah,
well, think about it, right? All the tools, right? The ecosystem that's built around Java, same with .NET too, right? Of course, is extremely versatile, and
right.
And the tools, just even the nature of the language is just so versatile that being able to add now fast startup times and really small footprints just adds to that versatility now of the language.
No, but sure enough, it is funny. Anytime I see like a embedded operating system type thing and it's going slow, I'm like, oh, it must be Java, right?
Yeah. Immediately, right? You think that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
we're going to change those. Yeah, we're going to change those perceptions, right? So come to the session, learn about Quarkus, and hopefully we'll help you change those perceptions that Java is big and fat and can't run in serverless environments. We'll show you that it can.
Right. No, it's kind of the age old joke, right? Because as you said, a long time ago, things were a bit slower when it came to and really it's just getting the JVM started. Once the JVM was going, it was fine. It was just
right
getting it started. Sometimes
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Java was designed for those big long running applications that had slower startup times. That things have changed obviously, and now that time to response is really important, and this is a technology that addresses that. And I think it goes, and I'll say that, our involvement, Red Hat was the one that started this project. We established this Quarkus project, and I don't think it's unnatural that something like Quarkus comes out of Red Hat just because of our history with Java and OpenJDK. I think we've been involved OpenJDK for years and years and years, I think dating back to 2007. And now, talk about how things have kind of shifted. Obviously Sun was, the innovation of Java came out of Sun. And when Sun was acquired by Oracle, Oracle kind of took over the reins of Java, so to speak. And now there's even some transition going on in that space, and I'm not certain if you're aware or not, but actually Red Hat is now the steward of OpenJDK and OpenJDK 11 projects moving forward. So Oracle's handed off that responsibility to us.
Well, that's really good to hear. Again, I've been in the Microsoft world for so long, but I know when Oracle bought Sun. There was a lot of concerns about that, right? And a lot of those concerns were proven out, right? And I do not. Oracle buying Sun for Sun made a whole lot of sense. It did not make sense for Java, right? No. Now, grant you, Sun having Java was always kind of a weird little thing, anyways, right? But it definitely didn't make sense for Oracle, right? Because it was not the type of world that they play in. Because it's not, the Oracle is all about the licenses, right? And how can we sell your licenses? A framework doesn't work that way, right? It's so.
Yeah, and I don't want you to think I'm throwing shade on Oracle, because obviously, the Java teams within Oracle, continue to push some great innovation out of Java in the entire environment. So, and that's continued on. So that group, within Oracle, I don't know. I consider it kind of almost a separate organization, right? They really had I think they, in their hearts, they really wanted to, continue to see this environment grow and innovate, and they did a great job of that. And now we're just kind of, helping drive that a little bit further with OpenJDK. Yeah.
Oh no, but I was throwing shade against Oracle.
You can go ahead. Yeah.
I've had bad experiences with Oracle. It's for several years I managed a team that was doing we were doing several different things, but one of our biggest project was on PeopleSoft, and which Oracle had already acquired, and it was just, I saw the mess they were making of PeopleSoft. So, and that's as far as
right.
We don't need to talk about previous customers and how messed up their systems were. But Oracle was not making my job any easier with some decisions they were making with it.
Well, I guess, feel comfortable that, we're driving some, we're going to help drive some of that innovation on the OpenJDK side. And, and we've got a long history with Java and OpenJDK. We've pioneered a lot of stuff, a lot of innovation in the Kubernetes space, Quarkus being, one of those technologies, help Java run better in those environments too. And we've we've led a lot of Java-based projects, ActiveMQ, Camel, Hibernate, Wildfly, a lot of things that a lot of Java developers are familiar with. We've been the lead or collaborated on a lot of those projects. So we've got a lot of history. And so I think what I'm getting at is that I think for us, we were a natural, I guess, to bring this innovation because of our involvement with the Java community and our reach in other open source, projects and organizations. So,
So I'm curious, talking about Red Hat, what's probably something about Red Hat that would surprise most people who don't deal with Red Hat on a normal basis?
Yeah, I would say the most common, perception is, or comment that we get is, Red Hat. Oh, you're the Linux company. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that Linux is where we, that was our flagship technology. Was Red Hat Enterprise Linux, no question about it. That's how we built, the open source business that we've built. But what's happened since then, I think, is surprising. Let's take our involvement in OpenJDK, right? I mean, there's probably not a lot of people that know or understand our history there, and the fact that we're kind of leading or the stewards of OpenJDK in 8 and 11. But I think what most people maybe tend to forget is that we Red Hat acquired JBoss way back when, and that was kind of our inroads into the Java community. And JBoss has flourished as an integral part of a lot of middleware applications that are being run by organizations today. So that space, and we've got a lot of technologies that fit in that integration layer, or what we define as that application development services portfolio. Integration with Camel, messaging with AMQ, and Streams, which is our implementation of Kafka, which is obviously growing by leaps and bounds in popularity and the way it's being implemented, especially with event-driven architectures. So we've got this whole complete and API management. So we've got this complete integration portfolio that has been really well adopted and implemented by a lot of organizations. And then I think finally, what people would be surprised to learn is that, we've kind of driven enterprise Kubernetes through a solution that we call OpenShift. And we've taken, we jumped on the Kubernetes bandwagon fairly early, I would say, before a lot of the other organizations kind of jumped on the Kubernetes bandwagon. So we've been able to kind of drive a really complete solution around deploying Kubernetes in the enterprise. That includes a lot of tools and management and integrations with your your development pipelines. So we've really enhanced that whole experience around deploying and managing Kubernetes and containers in an enterprise. So while you might think we're the Linux company, I think we're doing more in the Kubernetes space. I think at any one time we're in the top 3 contributors to Kubernetes. So we've kind of shifted. I shouldn't say we've shifted. Our focus obviously is still on the foundational components, which is RHEL, because without a hardened, reliable foundation to run all these services on, then you're really missing out. So RHEL is an important component of it. But we've really expanded our reach in the enterprise and how we can address a lot of different use cases and fill a lot of gaps for organizations.
No, that's cool. I mean, sure enough, if you asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said, yeah, Linux. I don't think they do much anything else, right? It was when Devin Phillips went to go work for him for Red Hat. That's when because again, I've known Devin for years, so that's talking to him. Hearing what he was going to do for Red Hat. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't even know you all did that kind of stuff. So it's so cool. So next question I want to ask you, looking at Java, right? I mean, what are some of the, other than Quarkus, because obviously you're really into that right now, but what are some of the interesting things in Java that you're really finding interesting?
So I think, and I will go back to Quarkus just because the founding principles or the guiding principles around Quarkus was around microservices. And this is a technology that, is great for that. I mean, it was designed for that, obviously, as I mentioned, but it's also good for other types, monoliths for that. For what it's worth, you could use Quarkus to write monolithic applications if you want, but the design principle was around microservices. And what we're seeing, is that it's also providing or becoming a foundational layer for other technologies to run on top of. So I mentioned event-driven architectures a little bit earlier. That's something where we can run, Kafka-based applications that can take advantage of that small footprint and fast startup times that are provided by Quarkus and really enhance the performance of those applications. So what we're seeing is that as far as interesting Java technologies is that we're seeing framework, Quarkus is kind of a framework and then other technologies building on top of it. So Kafka and event-driven architecture is one. There's a business automation technology called Cogito, which takes traditional Java business process automation and management and builds on top of Quarkus to run those types of applications on top. So I think that's kind of what's really cool. What's happening is that we've kind of got this framework and other use cases within everyone's ecosystem is saying, wow, hey, we can take advantage of that really fast startup time and those really small footprints and run these other use cases on top of that, whether it be event-driven or business process automation. So there's a lot of things going on there. Camel K, right? So the traditional integration patterns that are used by CAML for, to integrate lots of different disparate systems and databases and what have you, and be able to, route and transform within the CAML architecture. Now there's a Kubernetes version, right? CAML K that can run and take advantage of Kubernetes and can take advantage of Quarkus too. So I think what it's done, at the onset, I mentioned kind of revitalization for me of Java technologies. And I think that's what we're experiencing now, where people are saying, wow, we can really take advantage of this with technologies that have been long existing, but now are being geared to run more cloud native in the Kubernetes space.
Oh, cool. That's really exciting. It is interesting to see how much containers have taken over the world.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and sure enough, I mean, on the Linux side, it's taking over the world more than on the Windows side. I mean, we're starting to see it more on the Windows side, but there's some. I mean, again, we joked about Java being slow. Well, Windows has slow problems when it comes to containers, right? It doesn't make containers as optimal. I mean, just like when Scott and I were starting to call, I was in the middle of rebooting a virtual box, because it crashed on me, and I was like, well, it's a Windows box, so I restarted it, right? Because what else do you do with it? But no, it really has been interesting. I have not gotten too much into containers. Just because, I mean, I'm doing a different type. I mean, we're definitely doing cloud first development, but we're because we have to. We don't really have an office, right? So it wasn't a matter did we have to leave the offices because of the pandemic. We didn't have an office to leave.
Yeah.
But we're doing it different types of technology. Although we're actually starting to put some stuff into containers because it's making sense.
Yeah. So
we've been a little bit slow on it, but I've definitely been seeing it pick up a lot. Yeah,
and you may be surprised that there are some organizations that really haven't adopted it yet, but I think it's certainly on their roadmap to move some of their applications to those type environments. I think there's Docker helped drive that, no question about it, right? I mean, they're the 800-pound gorilla, but there's been the formation of some open source organizations that are creating tools that allow you to do the same thing that you can do in your Docker environment with different approaches, right? Docker's kind of this big daemon that runs, and there's tools like Podman and Builda and Scopio that have been, you think. I'll use an analogy, right? We talk about monoliths and breaking those monoliths into smaller pieces so they can run more efficiently. That's essentially what these tools do for your container environment, right? So think Docker as kind of the big, daemon that's running in your environment, and Podman and Builda, those tools break up those the tasks into smaller, tools that run a little bit more efficiently. So, so that space is even evolving, right? It's evolving very, very quickly. But to your point, I mean, I think just being able to provide, real flexible, easy to use environment that supports a lot of the frameworks that you're familiar with, Java, .NET, you can run all those in containers today, obviously, is really, I think, accelerated adoption of that. And for those organizations that haven't, they're, of course, looking at it and how they can adopt it.
Yep. No, I mean, that's where we're at, right? We have not been doing it, but now we're seeing some benefits. I mean, our primary thing is still not going to be, because it was built not to be, right? I mean, it was built using on pure web technologies. But like, for example, we have a Python app that we run. It does some machine learning type stuff. We actually found we can actually run that more efficiently inside of a container. So that's actually going out next week, right? So that'll be our first official thing in containers going out next week.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because some of those that are maybe on the path to adoption or just recently adopted were being driven there because their ISVs are saying, this is how we're going to deliver our software in the future. It's going to be in containers. So, you need to get on board. because that's how we're going to be delivering it. Right. And frankly, it's exactly where we're at. Everything, I talked about some of those technologies in our integration portfolio, et cetera. All of those are optimized to run in containers today in a Kubernetes environment. So, it's not, it's something that most ISVs are pushing because of all those benefits that they're seeing, right, for deploying their software.
I see tons of benefit for the ISV because I know for a fact it works on this container. So I don't have to deal with, I put it on this old machine we had sitting back here, right?
Yeah.
We don't support that machine, right? So that it's going to work, right? No, it's
right.
I definitely see the benefit there, right? I mean,
you're exactly. I mean, that's one of the advantages, right? Is that it worked on my machine. I don't know why it's not working in production, right? So you get rid of that, or at least avoid it sometimes.
Right. So, to get back to you, I mean, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, fun has been hard to come by lately. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I like to dabble around with, woodworking and those types of things. I have a couple projects that I'm working on right now that, my wife would like to see completed, but no. So I like dabble in those types of things, and like in most technology person, I like dabbling with, Raspberry Pis and doing things in that type of space too, and I'm also involved in some volunteer activities. So we talked a lot about Microsoft today. They formed they established a program called TEALS. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I am familiar with it.
Okay, good.
But I'm sure go ahead and explain, because I'm sure a lot of people are not familiar with it.
Yeah, so it's an initiative that came out of Microsoft that essentially matches those technology people, like you and me, with classroom teachers and high school classroom teachers to help teach computer science. And there's a couple different programs. There's some AP programs. There's some intro to computer science programs. But essentially, we're in the classroom with the teachers, once or twice a week, helping them teach computer science to the students in their classes. So it's a lot of fun. It helps. I'm sure it's near and dear to your heart, right? We need more technology people. So this hopefully it gets kids interested, maybe at a younger age in technology, and introduces them to some of the concepts. And at the same time, they get interaction with people that are really out in the field, right. Implementing and using the technology, right? So,
it was interesting. I actually found out about TEALS at CodeMash this year. I had not heard of it before, but Microsoft had that. So they had their booth, and that was one of the two things they were focusing on in their booth on that. And I was really interested in that. I haven't done much more with it other than some initial talks with them, but they do not. I mean, they don't have anything going on here in Louisville.
Okay.
But I might. I don't know. Problem is, I might do a lot of the things, but I would like to help them out with that. I mean, sure enough. Now this was probably 10 years ago or so. I actually did teach some middle school students at my daughter's school, and I had a blast doing it, right? So for them, it was after school, right? And so it was like right after school, and I think we did it once a week, I think. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we couldn't get very far because it was middle school students, and the tools, they weren't the tools like there are today, right? I mean, I was pretty much having to make up the lessons. Right. But I will say.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned the tools, and, Microsoft and the teams at the TEAL program, came up with curriculums. They worked, in collaboration with like Code.org and some of the other, players in that space to come up with a really nice curriculum. But it's funny you mentioned tools, because, most of the kids now, are using Chromebooks, or in school. And, there's a challenge there in getting some of these technologies to work, especially if you're, one of the AP courses is around Java development, and getting Java to run on a Chromebook. If you're not familiar with how to do that, if you're a classroom teacher and you might not have that familiarity, that's kind of challenging and fun at the same time.
Right.
Hey, I can run VS Code on my Chromebook, and here's Java running in the terminal, right? So you can do those things. So I've learned a lot of how you kind of adapt to running the things that it's easy for us to run on our desktops. Getting that same environment built up on a Chromebook is fun and challenging. So
yeah, oh yeah. But the cool part, you talk about tools, now you got websites where you can run compilers on the websites. Right. Probably like yesterday. So actually, you might. So yesterday, I was speaking with Michael Yodov. I don't know if you know him or not.
That name sounds really.
He's in Columbus.
Yeah.
And he's part of the Java community in Columbus. So that's why I thought you might know him. Yeah. But he's all on board on Kotlin, and we were talking about that. And so he was pointing me to the Try Kotlin language or lang.org site, and I was actually fooling with that a little bit last night, and because I was mentioning I really would like to learn a little bit about Kotlin. Not enough of them to write apps.
Me too. Yeah, I have to do. We talked about expanding our knowledge base. That's something I certainly want to learn too. Yeah.
Well, as I was talking about yesterday, everyone I've talked to who's done Kotlin absolutely loves it. Right, and has just found it amazing. Right, and that's part of the reason why I want to learn a little bit more about it. So our Android development is done in Kotlin, and the guy who does it just loves it. Right, I was playing around with that for about 10 minutes last night. I didn't have much time to play with it, but actually that was and I think it was just like tried. Here, let me look that up again real quick. I could actually tell people on the.
What's it called? Well, I call it REPL. It's repl.it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an online, web-based polyglot IDE where you can choose what languages or what frameworks you want to build something. Yeah.
Well, this was this is it says this now obsolete, but so try.kotlinlang.org, right? Now apparently they have Kotlin Playground, but the cool part about this was they have like different examples, with code in there, so you could literally just start looking at some things and actually start seeing how you can use the language.
Yeah,
which that was really neat to see that they did that.
Yeah. Any way you can, I find that everyone learns differently, of course, but I find that if you can help me bootstrap it and get it up and show me some things, I can maybe take it from there, but. I agree. If you've got something that you can at least reference and make some association to what language that you use today, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. So awesome! It's been great, talking to you for the last hour. I've really been enjoying this. And again, it shows that a Microsoft developer and a Java developer can get along just fine, right? Of course, it's a joke, right? But.
No, it was good catching up, Chad.
No, it really was. And love the fact that you'll be speaking again. Wish you could be down here, but unfortunately, we can't. So you'll have to get your bourbon in different ways.
I was going to say, I guess I'm just going to have to. I'll bring out my Code PaLOusa glasses and take advantage of that.
I love that we did those glasses. I really, and we've done them twice because they were so popular. We did it another time.
Yeah, I've got two of them. Yep.
Yeah, maybe another year or two we'll do another. Maybe eventually if you'll have a set of 4, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that's my goal.
Awesome. Like I said, I really do appreciate it.